Hello everyone. Now that we're through with our discussion about the Java operators, we are going to proceed to our next topic, which is the control statements. So control statement is a statement that determines whether other statements will be executed. So we have two types of a control statement, namely the conditional or decision statements and the looping or repetition statements. So first, let's talk about the conditional or decision statements. So an example of it is an if statement which decides whether to execute another statement or decides which of the two statements to execute. So we have different types of conditional or decision statement, namely the if statement. So let's first take a look at the syntax of this one. Okay, so given here, I have an example of an if statement. So it is said here that I just initialized here x is equal to 10, and if I'm telling here that if x is greater than 5, I will print out this one. And you can actually see here that we are using now our previous topics, the assignment operators and the relational operators, and we'll be using also the logical operators. It is where these operators will be handy. Okay, so here is our example of relational operators, the greater than, and let's try to take a look at the output of this one. Okay, so it says that it is greater than 5. So that is our if statement. So basically it says that it gives us the opportunity to decide whether to execute this statement or not. So if we say that our x is equal to 1, this statement will basically not it will not execute because the statement is false. So every time that you will see an if statement or a conditional statement, it gives us the impression that this condition must be true to execute this statement. Otherwise, it will not proceed to this one and just proceed to the next statements below it. Okay, so I hope that's clear. Again, this should be true. Okay, so now what about we include the logical operators? What if we have here is greater than 5, and we say y is actually greater than 0, should be greater than 0. So over here, I'm just using parentheses so that it will be easier to read, which are grouped, and then let's declare here int y is equal to 1. Okay, so do you think this will actually execute our printout? Okay, it doesn't give us any output since we are telling the program that you have to execute this if and only if x is greater than 5 and y is greater than 0. And whether this is true but this is false, this will not execute because we are actually using the AND logical operator, which should be which gives us a gives us true value if and only if both or all the statements are true. So this should be true, and this second statement or statement should be true also. So to make it true, let's try this one. X is equal to 6 and y is equal to 0. So let's try if it will actually give us an output. And there we have it. X is greater than 5. Okay, so now let's proceed to the other example of conditional or type of conditional or decision statement, which is the if-else statement. So we have here, we are actually giving some examples here, and let's try to look at the example of what if I want to give the user a message that it is not greater than 5, just like our example a while ago that x is equal to 1. I want to output that x is actually less than 5. And I'm telling you, we cannot do it here, because if we will put it here, x is less than 5, and we set the x is equal to 1, our output here will actually be x is less than 5. Okay, that is correct, and it outputs what I wanted. But what if we put it back to 10? What do you think will be the output? Okay, so it outputs both statements. So it outputs x is greater than 5 and x is less than 5. So which is the correct one? Which gives us the impression that it's not true. It's because x is equal to 10 and it is not less than 5. So that means this portion here, this statement here, is being executed whether or not this is true or false. So what we need is an else statement which will be executed if and only if the statement here is false. Okay, so we are telling this that the program to that if the condition is true, run this. Else, if it is not true, run this. So that is basically what we mean by if-else statement. And there we have it. It is greater than 5. Okay, so what about the if-else if? What do we actually mean by that? Okay, so given our example here, you can actually read that, okay, x is greater than 5 and x is less than 5. What if we put here an actual number which is 5? What will be our output then? It is not greater than, it is not less than. So why does it gives us an output that x is less than 5, which is not true because x is equal to 5 and it is not less than 5. Okay, so because we are just getting the value of true or false if x is greater than 5, then output this. Else we will output less than 5, whether it be it equal to 5 or 4, 3, 2, 1. As long as it is not greater than 5, we will output this. Else we will output this. So what we need here is else if statement, which gives us if x is less than 5, output this. And then we need what we call a catcher, the else statement, if else if, and of course we should always have this else statement. It will not actually give an error, but for the purpose of good programming practice, you should always put a catcher here, which gives us the ability to filter all our output. So we have now it is greater than, less than, and if it is not greater than or less than, then our x must be just equal to 5, nothing else. If it is not greater than, if it is not less than, then it is equal to 5. And now we have our program. What I can say is a perfect program for this output, that if it is not greater than or less than 5, we have a catcher that it must be equal to 5 and nothing else. Okay, so given this, what about our nested if? Okay, so for example that we have here x is equal to 6, and okay, we know now that it will output this one, but I want to output another program which is maybe x is equal to 6. Okay, so given this program, I understand that if whether this is 10 or 12, or as long as it is greater than 5, it will output this one and this one. But I want to output this part if and only if the x is equal to 6. So that is the time that we will be needing another if statement here to filter if x is equal to 6. That is the only time that we will print this. And if it is 10, of course this will be false and it will not actually print this one. Okay, so let's give it a try. And there we have it. It is greater than 5 and is equal to 6. And again, if it is not equal to 6, it is only greater than 5. Okay, so those are our conditional or decision statements. So again, it's just give us the ability to decide which statements to execute. Okay, so another type of our control statement is our looping or repetition statement. So we have here a definition which is a loop decides how many times should a statement be executed. So we have here 3 types: the for, the while, and the do while statement. So let's give it a try here. Okay, so for example, the for loop, we have this syntax which gives us, which accepts 3 parts. Okay, so this syntax accepts 3 parts, and it is the initialization, where we initialize our variables. Int x is equal to 0, terminated by semicolon, and we can also do it here, and int x, there we have it. And then we also have, this is our initialization part. Okay, so I'll just put it here. Initialization. And of course, followed by condition and iteration. So what are these 3 parts? Okay, so we have our initialization and condition. It says condition. So we remembered in our if statement that it also gives us condition. So if x is greater than 0 or less than 5, okay, let's just give it a little bit lower number. Okay, so x is equal to 0, and then x is less than 2. Okay, so we have our initialization, condition. What is missing? The iteration. So the iteration means we are going to increment or decrement our variable. Okay, so let's take a look at our example here. System.out.print x. Okay, so what do you think will be the output for this one? Okay, it outputs 0, 1. So basically, if we try to put it in a print line, I just put ln, it gives us 0 and 1. So what does it mean? We have initialized our variable to be 0, which means x is equal to 0, and then we outputted it it went through here. Okay, x is equal to 0, and then it went to our condition and asked or evaluates whether is x less than 2. If it is true, if the condition is true, it will pass through this statement. It will execute this statement. Everything that is inside the for loop, it will execute. And after doing that, after printing the 0 here, which is our basis here, it will go back to the iteration. So that means if x is equal to 0 and it is less than 2, it outputs this one and then goes back there. X is now equal to 1. And after going to the iteration part, it will actually go back and reevaluate itself if the x is still less than 2. So now our x is equal to 1. So is x less than 2? If it is also true, it will execute this statement again. That's why we have 1 here. Okay, so why don't we have 2 there? Because 2 is not less than 2. Unless we put less than or equal to 2 there, we will have our 0, 1, 2. Okay, so let's try another example which gives us, for example, we have this one. Okay, 3 and then greater than or equal to 0 and then minus minus. So what do you think will be the output here? We have x is equal to 3 and then x is greater than or equal to 0 and then x minus minus. Let's just compile it and then 3, 2, 1, 0. So what happens here? We say that x is equal to 3 and is x greater than or equal to 0? Yes, print this. So 3 minus minus, that means we are going to minus 1. Subtract 1 from x, which gives us x is equal to 2. And then reevaluate it. Is it still greater than or equal to 0? Yes, that's why we have an output of 2. And subtract it again until this condition became false. Okay, so that is our for loop. So now let's go to the while loop. While loop statement. Okay, so we have here int x is equal to, for example, 3. And then we have our while x is less than 5, we want you to output this one. Okay, so what will be the output? We had our program became infinite. Okay, so what's the problem? A while ago, during our for loop, we have had initialization. We also have our condition and our iteration. So over here in our while loop, we actually have our initialization. We initialized it to 3, and then we have our condition. So what is missing? We don't have any iteration here at all. That means from the very start, x is equal to 3, and we are just evaluating it over and over again, that if x is less than 5, output this one. That's why we have an infinite output, which is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, infinite 3. So what's missing is the iteration. So if we are to put here x plus plus, are we going to have a different output. Okay, so let's try. I see. Okay, so we have here 3 and 4. So what does it mean that x is equal to 3, and if it is less than 5, then output this. So that is our while statement, while loop. Okay, so another one here is our do while. So what do we mean by do while? So over here, our while statement, let's just comment it out first. Okay, so our do while here is do this while this is true. So this is our syntax for that. Let's just copy this one out. And then let's just output this one. We are telling it to print out the value of x if while x is less than 5. And okay, let's just try it. X plus plus. Okay, so what's okay, so basically what happens here is that let's just compile it first and then run it. And oh, what's happening again here? Okay, so let's try to stop it first. Okay. Oh, I just ran the wrong code. Okay, so let's just run it again. Oh, we have an error. Okay, sorry. You should put Terminator over there. Okay, so now let's just compile it again and run it. Okay, so now we have the same output here, but not so the same. So let's try to find out what is the difference between the do while and the while statement. Okay, so it is said here that x is equal to 3 and print this out and add this one, and then while it is less than 5. So it's all the same with the while statement. So let's try to comment this out and rerun this code here. And as we all know, the output will be 3, 4, just the same as the previous one. But what if this becomes 6? Now, the output will be nothing. Okay, so will it be the same with the do while statement? We are telling it to do this, then evaluate it. So let's just try to compile it, then run it, and it gives us an output. It actually gives us an output, which is 6. So why does it give us one output, but the while statement doesn't give us any statement? It's because of their difference in the syntax, which could be read as the while statement gives us the condition first. So first we have to evaluate it before we can actually give an output. But the do while statement says that you have to do this whether or not this is true or false at least once. So the difference between the while and do while is that in the do while, the statement will be executed at least once. Unlike for the for loop and the while loop, it will not actually give us any output if the statement is false. Unlike in the do while, it will execute the statement at least once. Okay, so hopefully you have understood our control statements. Again, it is a statement that determines whether other statements will be executed, and those two are the conditional or decision statements, the if else if, nested if, and then the if else, which should be equal to true to be executed, and then the looping or repetition statement, which repeats or decides how many times should a statement be executed. Okay, so to be able to be more familiar about it, please try to uh, create another here, trying to create or combining the two while having the loop. Try creating an if else statement inside the loop and then trying the decrement iteration or the minus minus, and happy coding everyone.